something that's so important for me in my work right now and just overall is expression, because your 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 body knows what you're not expressing. Your body, and we're here to express things through our throat center. We're not here to express things through our mind, but through our throat center, through our physical form. And when you hold that in, it's like if I'm bitter about a former partner or something like that, because I didn't express something, it's going to make me deeply unhealthy. So I've learned that no matter what the circumstances are, to express that.
Yep.
You know, she could be completely livid with me and I want to send her flowers. We're not even on talking terms. I'm going to do it. And I can feel in my body, like these are things that I've done. I can feel in my body, I'm a little bit healthier because
I
I'm not withholding.
100%. Yep.
I'm not just not saying that. Even if it's one
Yep.
sided, even if it's one sided, it's like nine-centered love is without conditions. So even if it's one sided, and the homogenized advice would be like, oh, well, match it, da, 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 they're doing this, they're doing that. Forget all of that. Forget all of that. I'm going to express what's, coming out of my emotional system. I'm going to express my passion for me.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to have a good effect on them. It's great. We're here to love and be loved. But any expression, anything, whether it's love or anger, whatever it is, any expression that needs to come out of the
It
body,
is true.
that's true, it needs to come out.
100%.
Needs to come out.
Truth held in the body is disease, for sure. Like 100%, whether that be expressed through action or through speaking.
Yeah.
But yeah,
One
that's
word.
real.
Yeah.
Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of Resonance. I'm your host, Sandra D. Today we have on my good friend Breyton. He's a 2/4 emotional projector. We both have the 1020, so Channel of Awakening and Pluto in the first house and Scorpio in the first gate. Truth, just a lot of resonance to that. I hope that you enjoy our conversation. If you want to support the podcast, you can like it, subscribe, comment, share it. All those things help. And I'll see you guys there. Okay, enjoy. How's it going?
It's my birthday tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's going. It's probably the first time I'm feeling like I'm gonna have a good birthday in like 5 years. So I can't complain. I can't complain about that. I'm happy about that. And we're past the eclipses, which is great because that was rough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so very much feels like my year's actually just starting.
Do you feel like living as yourself in the amount of space that you have impacts that at all? Or do you just feel like it's just the timing of this year? Or like, I don't know.
I mean, I think that a lot of it has to do with being a 42 sun. I close a cycle every year. Every year, once I hit my birthday, cycle closes. And so I think that very much, yeah, it's just that my cyclical time clock for my incarnation is based around. I mean, for everybody, 42 is the closer, right? But for me, because I'm on cross of the Maya, it's something that I'm aware of. Like I'm consciously aware of cycles because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas not everybody's aware of it, but that there's cycles for everything, and everybody's living those out. And for me, it's like I'm very aware of the cycles that are happening in my life.
And like how you enter things obviously is going to it is the determining factor.
Totally.
And
Yeah,
how you
it's
exit, how you close it, if it can be closed.
if it can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the thing about being a 42 and something that I like to give outer authority on around this time is that 42s have to close cycles at a natural completion. It's not that the
Yeah.
energy's there and you want to close it. It doesn't work like that. You have to close the cycle when it comes to a natural completion, which is interesting because it's almost like you don't close it. You recognize that it's time to close it and then you close it. It's not like, oh, I need to close this cycle. I
Right.
run into this. Probably the most common is when it comes to teaching,
Mm-hmm.
because I'll have however long I'm going to be teaching a group of students, novices, and then there's also like how long that needs to take. So we could be set for 2 months, and that actually needs to take 3 months, or it could be set for a month and a half, or 2 months, and it actually needs to be a month and a half. It can't be dragged out any longer, and so I have to be aware that I'm not closing things too early.
Mm.
That everything is, which is easy with need motivation because I know it's necessary, but that's a that's a really big one. Is just knowing everything has to come to a natural completion, which in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ways that just completes itself. But yeah, not rushing through because when it comes to cycles for everybody, it's just something I'm aware of because my personality sun and my incarnation cross. You have to close a cycle for something new to come in. That's the way that this game works. That's the way that Maya works. And so, that's the exciting thing about being a door closer, about being somebody that locks people into cycles and closes cycles, is that I get to see the cycle close and then something new can happen. And that's something that's become a little bit spookily apparent to me, is that I lock people into cycles. That's what
Mm-hmm.
that's part of what I do, is I lock everybody into a cycle of
Mm-hmm.
transformation, and then it's like
Yeah.
connect with me, and then I lock you into a 7-year cycle, and then eventually that cycle of transformation is gonna it's gonna run its course, but it's
Yeah, and you said it was in Venus too, as well. I mean, Sun and then Moon, but then Venus, which is like your morals, your more, like your right and wrong
yeah,
cycles.
yeah, yeah, and it's just not. It's heavy energy, it's a format. It's like
Mm-hmm.
anytime that we're looking at a format, it doesn't matter where the placement is. It's a theme. That was something
Mm-hmm.
that I learned, is
Yeah.
even having an undefined
Everything in your
cycle.
life is ruled by cycles and mutation.
Yeah,
Because you also have
yeah,
the third.
yeah. I have both of those. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh,
And twice, like more than, oh, you have three, you have both of them more than once. I didn't look at how many times you had the third gate, but
the third gate
conscious and
twice,
unconscious. Yeah.
twice. Yeah, it's my Mercury
Yeah.
3.5 victimization.
Yep. Well, on the pulse, right? It's like on, off, and then it like jumps you forward.
Yeah, yeah. It's
It
it's
builds and
it's
you feel
really
it
interesting to
building.
have the be a pure individual, but have the collective and tribal activations that I have.
Yeah, especially in your cross too. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
Same. I have the fourth gate and as my personality sun. So
yeah.
like logical collective.
Hmm.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, something I just thought of too. Like, did you ever hear Ross say, because like um John Lennon had 53 and then John McCartney had the 42. So like John Lennon like started things
Hmm.
and his killer had the 42. And Ra goes, imagine the 42 would be a good assassin. And I was like, what? Because like you were a sniper, right? Or you did some of that work, right?
I was an Overwatch team leader, so
I was like, oh, well, there you go.
didn't use
Bring
so I
things
use
to a
a light
flow.
machine gun, but in those
Okay.
types of conflicts, essentially the light machine gunner takes on both roles in a lot of ways, because I can shoot just as far
Mm-hmm.
and I can do single fire, but I can also give cover.
Mm-hmm.
I'm eliminated. A sniper can get eliminated and a team can still run. But if a light machine gunner gets eliminated, so I'd always have two people with me. I'd have an assistant and that could also run it if I got taken out, and then I would have um, another operator that was with me for protection, essentially. Because if I got taken out, then my whole team is,
Not
and
protected anywhere. Yeah.
yeah, because as a light machine gunner, I can take out snipers. I can take out anything that's long range, 3 to 800 meters. So, but yeah, being Overwatch, being somebody that is generally fighting from a little bit far out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, sometimes I would be close depending on what we're doing, but sometimes I'm fighting from 300 meters out or longer. So, yeah, very much. Yeah. Eliminating from far away sometimes.
Yeah, closer, death. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 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 There's a lot
Yeah.
of what it,
And to
Janus
have
the
that in your
archetype.
cross, like that's a
Mm-hmm.
heavy like incarnation in ways,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
also like beautiful in other ways too.
Yeah. Totally. You have to be okay with it. I have to
Yeah.
be okay
Mm-hmm.
with, but it also, I think that gives me the, has given me the capacity to be okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's not only just the cycle closing, it's also the transformation. I'm a 2-4, so being a 2-4 on that cross, it is. If you look at 32.2,
Mm-hmm.
32.2 states you know, that transformation is going to be beneficial to others. So it's
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
transformation is going to be beneficial to others through cycles of
Mm-hmm.
growth.
Yep.
I have to go through my own death and rebirth process consistently.
Yeah. And then you express it through your 1/8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's like that's
exactly.
also part of it. It's also part of how it gets to impact the other.
Yeah, yeah. It's
And it makes sense because anything that's format is obviously gonna touch all the other aspects of like that tribal piece or like, your individuality.
yeah. Formats
And
are
yeah, everything in the tribe has to like benefit the tribe.
yeah.
So
Yep, yep. The one-way empowerment. It's the it has to
otherwise
be
it
best for
doesn't,
everybody. Yeah.
like the whole point of the tribe really
Yeah. Yeah.
does it benefit the tribe.
Yeah, I like being a 32 Earth.
Yeah.
I really do. It's something that it took me a while because you don't really understand your lines until you're correct. You don't really.
Yeah.
You think you do,
Yeah.
but you don't. And
You
then
watch them.
you're in strategy and authority, and then you start to see the script play out.
Mm-hmm.
And I start to see like, oh, transformation is beneficial to others, but also 32 is the gatekeeper for the tribe. But are you
Yeah.
going to work well with us? So it's like,
Yep.
okay, I can't let you in to my network as a fourth line because you're not going to be beneficial to everybody else. So
Yep.
then I saw that play. I was like, I've always been the gatekeeper for my network.
Yep.
I've always been the person that's like, yeah, no, they can't come in.
Yeah. I mean, I have the 49.3
Yeah.
at the other side.
Yeah. The other side. Yeah.
And it's a 0.3. So it's like
Mhm.
tribal principles, like who's in alignment with the tribal principles. And it's part of it's my earth. That's funny. So
That
we
is
both have an earth. We both ground our purpose through the tribe.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just it works through different.
So yeah, we're here to like benefit the tribe
Mhm.
through like our light. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. I definitely resonate a little bit more with I don't know. I was gonna say I resonate more with the tribe, but it's only the not self collective, but like who likes the not self collective, you know? Who's like a fan of the not self
Not
collective? It's just a
self-collective.
mob. So
Yeah.
a giant mob,
Yeah.
a giant wa.
Giant. Yeah. The giant. Not self tribe and the not self collective.
Yes.
The
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not self tribe is crazy and
not
brutal.
self tribe is way more problematic. Um,
Uh,
I mean, in terms of themes, I think that it is like that's where we get
okay, in
prejudice
terms,
from.
yeah,
We
okay.
get
I
prejudice
could agree. I could,
from
they can both be brutal in different ways. One is like brutal in terms of the heat and brutality, and then the other one is brutal in terms of the coldness and brutality. Like can be the collective can be so coldly like brutal.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's just different. One's like removed, the other one's very like passionate and wildly like
Hmm.
domineering.
Yeah, yeah.
So depends on which one, but both are obviously problematic. What is I'm like, what's the flip side of the not self individual? It's just like disempowerment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like self-loathing, basically.
Yeah. Or I was gonna say selfishness, but that's not a bad thing if it's correct. So it's not really, doesn't really work.
I mean, the not self of a individual is going to want to be accepted by other people, and so they're going to have self-loathing and
Yeah.
be disempowering because they're going to want to be accepted by the tribe and the collective. That's never been my case. I've always thought that was interesting when I'd study, and I'd be like, man, there's actually people, and then working with so many pure individuals and working with so many beings, it's like, oh, and then I
I
start to
don't see
see,
I don't see that through my husband at all
yeah,
either.
yeah, some of it. I mean,
But
I
he
think,
also was raised in a very unconventional like
mhm.
way that nourished that, I think. So it makes
Yeah,
sense that
yeah. I
there's like
mean, I think nurture has a lot to do with it. You know, I was raised by a parent,
yeah.
like,
Where
um,
you did you have space to be an individual?
yeah. I mean, my mom was a pure individual, and so it was always like whatever was going on socially. If I didn't fit in or I got in a fight or whatever, it was never a big deal. It was
Yeah.
always just like, like my mom was
Yeah.
always just on board with me 100%. Just because, I was, I'm not somebody that, I don't start conflicts, but I definitely finish them. And I've been like that
Mhm.
since I was a kid, right?
Finisher.
So, yep, yep, finisher,
I
yep,
didn't
yep,
start
exactly.
this fight, but I will definitely be
Yeah,
finishing it.
would definitely be closing this. Yes, yeah, would definitely be closing it. So yeah, I was empowered a lot in that sense, and I think that might have been. Your mom was a 43-23 and 4-6, 43-23. She's got 10. She also has exploration.
Mm-hmm.
She's very herself. You know what I mean? She's
Yeah.
externalizing very much herself. And
Mm-hmm.
so even though, I have my shyness, boldness as a 2-4, having all of that around me was definitely like, and this, from her perspective, the way that she views the war, the way that she's going to view me
Mm-hmm.
is like, well, I say what's on my mind.
Right.
She's integration. Oh, she has initiation too. She's full centering circuit. So
Oh
she's
wow.
gonna be, so she can be very willful, get out of my way, don't.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up, yeah, so
But
that's
like
why
also like a very like centering for like I've met people who have that
full
and it's
centering
like
circuit, yeah, they're solid. They're just like
yes.
solid people.
Yep.
Hmm.
And if the more kind of I would say the more you're misaligned with like truth, it's like the more you're gonna have an issue with them or be triggered by them
Totally.
because they're just like "Brr."
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So mom was always, she always was always giving me good backup. Because I never fit in, and I also never
Yeah.
tried to fit in. That was the other thing, is I always would just like look at everybody trying to fit in and be, and then eventually I was cool, like in high school, because I never tried to fit in. Eventually it became like I was cool. It wasn't even so much just the
I just like
outcast. I
knew
just
how to 10-4. I had the 59-6 too. So just like, I don't know, there's just like a social awareness of that. And that also conditioned me. Yes, I would say
mm,
in ways. But I also have the 49.3. So if it didn't align, I'd just be like, bye. Like, okay, I can't be controlled. I'm at 15-5. Like I can't be controlled. So it's like,
mm,
I'll do it to a certain point. But if something doesn't vibe with like my morals or what I feel to be true, like I just cut loose from it. I'm just like, I can't be a part of this revolution, you know? So, I remember though always thinking different than people and being like, doesn't everyone see this? Or like, why do I see this differently than everyone? Like,
yeah, yeah,
but I didn't, yeah. Not that I wanted to like fit in. It was more of just like, and maybe that's the structuring piece. It's like, how do I get this over to you? Like, how do I? And it
yeah.
would
How
just
do
be like a lot of trial and error of like, say it this way. Let me try saying it this way. Let me try. And like it would break through. Like eventually it would break through and it would be like, they got it. And I was like, oh, okay, that can happen. And because people would be like, you're not going to break through. I've tried. I'm like, well, I'm not you. So like, let me
Yeah,
try.
you have, but you're not me. It's like,
Yeah. And I think that's also like a third line thing where it's like, well, I haven't tried it. Like,
yeah,
let me try. Let me try it.
yeah,
Like, let me see. Yeah.
totally.
Let me close this because you have the 42.3. You're like, well, I haven't tried to close this. Like, there's like a driving kind of force of like, well, let me close it then. Because people are like, we can't close it. We've tried.
It's always,
This is
yeah,
just how it
it's
is.
always trying to trial and error to see how there can be increase. That's
Yeah.
what I watch. I watch my body. With that as my design moon, I watch my body is always trialing and erroring for increase. Like that's what it does. And which is, I'm very grateful for the line as a 2-4. It is
hmm
the actual line of trial and error. Like the line is trial and error.
Yep.
Um, and
Where
yeah,
are you going to school?
it's a trial and error of getting to increase through trial and error, which is I mean, that's why the
So
line is
you're
called what
here
it
to
is.
learn about sacral energy, really, or
Oh yeah,
like,
that's where most of my hooks are. I only
yeah,
have I only have two hanging gates in undefined centers. I have
I saw
61
that.
and
I saw
32.
you're totally, I was like, oh, I knew from you speaking that you had a totally open heart because I've heard you say that. And then you have a totally open head. I was like, okay, yeah. So like your hooks are like spleen
All
and
sacral.
sacral.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sacral, spleen. I don't
Mine's mostly in my root.
my sacral is. I'm not the role model for that. I'm not the
What?
role model for
For
sacral deconditioning. I mean,
conditioning.
I'm not addicted to sacral energy, but that's where all my hooks are. I mean,
Well, I mean, but it's also important to you because it's like literally how your life force comes out.
yeah,
So like, it's like the correct sacral is really
correct
like what
sacral
you're
or
learning.
collect. Yeah.
Not like sacral to have sacral. It's
Hmm.
like correctness. And that's
Totally.
me too. It's like the correct root pressure. Because
Right.
it's like I value the root pressure, but I also can feel if you have an open root, it's like it feels just like so many times people are always like pressuring you with their root, they're not maybe even consciously, but it's auric, right? But
Hmm.
it's like funny because like in my own space, I'm pretty like, and I have the only thing I have in the format is the 52. So it's like there's just a stillness also too. I just feel like I've been into meditate. Like, why did I like meditation? Is because I could like sit still and focus on something. And I liked Kundalini yoga because they give you something specific to do. And it's like a logical, like you master it. That's the logical process, you know? You master this breath, you master this thing, and you can focus on it. It's like something to like, oh, think like you feel the depression, you can sit still and focus on this, you know? And that was like, oh wow, it just always just very satisfying. But and I like the pressure from the people that are correct, but it's also just like funny because you do have to be aware of that. And like I really am, I don't know, it's just once you live your design long enough, it feels very apparent when that pressure is incorrect or when that sacral is incorrect. It's like, ah ha ha, I already know that frequency. It's just a frequency.
Yep.
You recognize it.
Yeah. You learn. You really do learn. I mean, gosh, it's so clear for me. It, and it's not for most projectors, right? It's most projectors aren't correct, but when you're correct as a projector, you are so aware of what you're absorbing.
Yep.
You are so like I'll walk into somebody's aura. Nope. Like I can, it's like, yep, nope, don't want that. And it's and
Yeah.
absorbing it, and aura eating.
It's more like this for me. Like, nope,
Yeah.
we don't want to know that. You
Nope,
know about that a little bit.
not into it. Yeah,
Yeah.
not into it. Get more sensitive to it,
Yeah, you
and
definitely do.
yeah, I mean, you just can feel how much it affects you, how much better you feel when you're not. Um, yeah, and it's not like we can avoid it totally, but
But
there's
there is
nothing
a
wrong.
level of being aware that you don't take it in the same way when you're unaware.
Yeah,
It's not that you don't feel it, but the way that you take it in and how it goes through you is different.
totally, totally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm starting the things that Ross says. I'm like, yeah, like I see how the mind never stops its chatter. Because when he used to say that, I remember thinking like, well, that sucks. Like how, like, I don't know. I just had this feeling of like, it's not going to change, and it doesn't
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
way, but the weight of it does. Like
yeah,
the
totally.
the power of it's gone. And it's just a chatter that has a certain frequency that is not truth.
Yep.
So it's just it doesn't have the same like power of decision making, which is all what he would say, but it like didn't maybe that's me being a third line. Like I had to like experience it to really like
Right,
know
right,
it to be like, oh, that's what he was saying. Like that's
right.
what he was meaning with that. Because
Um,
now,
uh,
like, whenever I enter an
overall.
experience, I'm like, oh, I hear the mind. And I'm like, probably not Cass. And then what I do is I then look at what are all of the outcomes that it could be that would be like not what my mind is wanting,
Right.
just to allow myself to like go through the hope, despair almost, and like just to be like, okay, is it still like, could you just like see these other avenues? And it's like, okay, cool. Now that I have like all these like potentialities and they're probably not going to be any of those, like,
Mhm.
and it's still correct in a guttural sense to enter, like then it's like I can enter it with more flexibility. Because I used to get that whole experiential like expectation thing and really like hit a low because I'm like, when I first started my experiment, because I remember thinking like, well, this was supposed to bring me this was like supposed to bring me this because this is what my mind said would be satisfying without actually just being in the experience. Because what it was really doing was deconstructing my not self. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And that is a painful process because you have to like let go of a lot of stuff a lot of times, depending. But so it was like deconstructing like that part. But then then the satisfaction does come because
Right.
then it's like, okay, now I'm actually entering things correctly in all of the ways that my mind, yeah, anyways.
All the way that, yeah. All the ways that your mind,
Yeah.
is it's really sneaky. It's really tricky. It's
Yeah.
not, you don't, I mean, it does lose a lot of its power. Like it's not a decision maker for me anymore.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll still try,
Yeah.
but it's not a decision maker. And it's not as loud,
Mm-hmm.
but
True.
it's still there. It's definitely still there. And like that's okay. It's just about training the mind. You can very much train your mind um, if you're conscious. If you're conscious of your behaviors, if you're conscious of your hooks, your not self, you can train your mind so that those become less prominent, so that those have less power. It's always a matter
Mm-hmm.
of training the mind. That's a lot of the work in rave psychology is training the mind so that you can pick things up and put it to something towards something else as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to the decision making process because that frees up everything.
Mm-hmm.
My mind is looking for so many other things. My mind is watching for so many other things that it doesn't really have the same horsepower to try and make a decision. By the time it tries to
Yeah.
make a decision, my personality is like,
Has less investment in it.
mm-hmm,
Because the
yeah,
mind also understands things.
yeah,
So if it can like experience something or understand a logic, or like if it can like grasp something and watch it work, it's like I'd rather not make your decisions because it fails. It can understand that on a level,
you can teach your mind. You teach your mind. You train your mind. To watch for your distraction, watch for your transference. That will give it a bunch to do right there. Watch it for your not self behaviors, or when you have the not self voices come in. And yeah, for me, that is hanging on to things that aren't good for me and not knowing when enough is enough. That's where my not self is.
Mm-hmm.
That is where it lives. It's not so bad on my spleen anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely don't even. I have no grasp on when enough is enough. I won't even.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be a while until I do. But
Mm-hmm.
I can at least catch myself. But whereas if
It
the
is
mind,
interesting to look at your centers and see
mhm,
which ones have the most because I'm just thinking about other projectors I know and I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, because my husband has a totally open throat and silence is not an issue for him. It's natural. Like he's so naturally just wants that?
yeah, when it's completely open, I mean it's and it depends on the material. Like we'll look at material and it's like, oh, there's this is completely open. So there's the amplification, there's the
Yeah.
conditioning, and then you go deeper and deeper, and it's the seduction, right? We say that at the start, but you go deeper into the knowledge, and it gets to the point where it's like, oh, actually, this is all perception. This is not conditioning because there's no fixed theme of conditioning. It's perception, and so that's where the wisdom comes in.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the completely open centers are the only centers that can reach a full potential because of that, because it's completely open. And so it's always been interesting to me to be around very strong minds. I've always been around strong ajnas. I got a completely open ajna. I
Mm-hmm.
can think in three different ways. I can think like all of those different streams. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
attached to any of it. My ego, I never have had ego issues. Like it's never been a thing. And I grew up
Mm-hmm.
around ego beings.
Mm-hmm.
And so it, it's especially those two places where the not self makes a lot of decisions. it's been really beneficial for me to have that in terms of the other, for me to sense when the mental definition is healthy or unhealthy. It's very easy when you've got an open center, completely open. That's what it's there for. Sense when the ego is unhealthy. That's what it's there for. It's there to completely.
Mm-hmm.
Egos are here to judge defined egos, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been really helpful to not to understand that, so that I can concentrate on where my real hooks are, because there's not hooks there. The real hooks are in my spleen and my
Mm-hmm.
sacral.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I can look back at my decisions, and it's so funny because I can look back at my decisions, and that's where my worst decisions were made. They weren't made out of pretending I was certain. I mean, I've never done that. Well, they weren't made out of me trying to prove myself. I've always been the person that's like, cool, you want to prove that? All right, I'm a 2-4. Have fun. Like, you know, but when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to hanging on to relationships that aren't good for me, people that aren't good for me, or not knowing when enough is enough, it's so clear to me that that's where my not self lives.
Mm-hmm. I don't have any totally open. All of mine have some, well, at least my spleen has one, and my head has one, my heart has one, and then my root has like tons,
Yeah. So
like
roots where you're going to
six,
school, pretty
six
much
or something. I don't know,
close
maybe
to
more than
wrapped
that.
up. Yeah. If you got one hanging gate somewhere, it's just close to
One,
wrapped
two,
up.
three, four, five, six, seven. I think seven, maybe eight. It's
Mm.
like multiples though, and like the 38, 58, 52. 52 only has one, and then the 38 I think has three, and then I think the 58 has three.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
it's like lots of energy for correction, lots of fighter energy, and my 38 is in my Neptune too, so it's like it just comes out. I
Cool.
don't know, like, you know.
Yeah. 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 Oh my gosh. Wait, is mine in my Neptune too? No.
It might, well, it would make sense. You're in 98,
Yeah. We're
1988, or 89, sorry, 98.
yeah we're
89. Let's
same
see.
nodal
Oh yeah,
family.
yours is in
Neptune.
Neptune.
Yeah.
Yep, Neptune was in the fighter.
Yeah. I think I've
Yeah.
got a few.
Mm-hmm.
It's a strong energy. Root is a very difficult one to deal with
Mm-hmm.
because of all the pressure. There's so much pressure.
It was almost like a blind thing where it's like I was more aware of the heart, not self, because I have the 40th gate. So it's like a not self of working for others.
Okay.
It's a not self of working for love. It's a not self of trying to prove like you're a good friend.
Right.
That was a big hook for me.
Right.
Gotta
Right.
prove I'm a good friend or I'm a good person or like whatever. Like that was where the proving really would come in as not self. And
Hmm.
still there's like flavors of that. And I really have to watch it as soon as it like clicks in that I feel it. And it's like, yeah, it just I know how to like ground it and move it now, you know. And but that is definitely like the hook and the proving was what I was always trying to prove. Or like I have the 44, and so like seeing the pattern and like the pattern's gonna repeat and like the fear of that, and holding on is definitely like that was like what I was doing in therapy was like that was the whole thing was like EMDR. It was like how do you release things? That was a focus, right?
Right.
But then it
Right.
like root was never really there until like a long time into my process because it was so amplified that I was like, wait, what am I doing? Oh, it does drive my life, you know? I have the 58 in my moon
Okay.
driving force.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So that shows up huge.
so yeah. Um mhm. And but also at the same time I do have that dichotomy of like either having like no pressure. Even though I have those activations, I definitely, I mean, you probably feel that way with the sacral. It's like either not doing too much, like at all, like that's not a thing, or it's like way too like over the top doing enough.
Yeah.
Enough is enough.
I can
I don't
be
know.
pretty good, but I'm getting
I would
better.
say my husband's really good at that
Better.
now, but in the
Yeah.
beginning, that would be definitely having the ego and the root. He would definitely overdo, and then his body would quit, and then he would be like, have no choice, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It shows up in flavors and different things still, but it's definitely like the awareness there's like to watch him rest is so rewarding. Cause like,
Yeah.
cause
Yeah.
like, I don't know, he used to look at rest as like a weak thing, you know,
Right. Right. Which is a very,
ego thing.
I mean, it's an ego thing, but it's also a struggle and emoting thing too, though.
Okay.
Because adrenalized energy, it's like ego energy is very powerful,
I
but
mean,
not
we
like
have
adrenalized
struggle.
energy.
Yeah.
But not like
Yeah.
adrenalized energy, you know.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
when I just think about the mirrors of it, like I have 55.4 and
Mm-hmm.
55.6, but 55.4, the in exaltation is about balance, principled energy that brings inevitable prosperity, but in detriment, it's boundless energy that knows no restraint. It's just like the path, you know. So if we just think about the mirror of struggle, it's like there's going to be an aspect of like
Yeah.
boundless energy of adrenalized energy,
Yeah. And it
and
requires the release because it's going to the spleen.
yeah, hmm yeah,
Yeah. So the balance in those things being a non-energy type is interesting.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot.
Takes
We
some
have
awareness, some finesse.
it takes it takes a lot of awareness
Yeah.
to see
Like
what's
I would have said,
on.
hands down, he was the more powerful being in the relationship in terms of
Mhm.
energy.
Yeah,
But I have an open root and an open heart. So,
yeah,
and the emotional wave takes so much energy out of you, like going through it. So, like, checks out. Cause, like, sometimes you have like tons, you're like, I don't know, times it's like crash. And it just takes a lot to process than that depth. So, it's
yeah.
different as an energy center than like the root or the heart.
Has awareness. You know, that's the difference.
Yeah,
It has
it's the
awareness, and
only awareness motor.
it's the only awareness motor, and it's the only motor that communicates through aura. I mean, it's the only awareness center that's really communicating through aura. That's communicating with other people. That's gathering data. The other awareness centers aren't doing that, and so it takes. You know, we can't even quantify the amount of energy
Yeah,
it takes to run a. We can't even
I
quantify it.
know. It
Yeah.
it like doesn't need you don't need to oracally be that with someone to be gathering that data.
No.
It's like coming to you. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's picking. It's picking it up. Solar plexus is picking all of it up, and yeah, just when you think about those channels, I mean, of course, we got the two manifesting channels that just go straight to the throat. But if we look at the other ones, sacral to solar plexus, ego to solar plexus, root to solar plexus, yeah, those are no joke motors. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Those are all the other three motors that are tied to powering
Yep.
that that wave, that motor. So
Yep.
yeah, we can't even quantify how much energy that's taking, and that's something that when I work with generators or just people that have generator kids or generator partners that are emotional, it's like this is going to present very differently.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I can expect an emotional generator to have a day where they're just really tired.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody doesn't have a defined solar plexus and they're a generator, I'm going to question if they're tired because I know that
Or if
how much
they're being,
power.
yeah, how correct. Yeah. It's
Exactly, because if the response is there, it's like there is no tired. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
for a pure generator, there's no really tired other than if expending that sacral energy.
Yeah. Other than correct at the end of the day when you're ready to,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
yeah.
then wake up and it's all there again. But for the emotional generator,
Well, I would add the caveat though of like melancholy too. Because
yeah, yeah.
melancholy definitely I'd say is
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
its
I,
own like
oh yeah, totally. I mean, I watched that with my mom as a pure individual, her melancholy, and
hmm
sometimes that turns into depression, and sometimes it's correct for that to turn into depression. And, I watched that, but I've also watched her in response. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
full centering circuit, like she's powerful generator, and she's just going,
Yep.
going, 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 going.
Yeah.
She wear me out.
Yeah.
It presents so differently the difference between the emotional generator and the
Yeah.
sacral generator. It really does. Yeah, yeah. It's the amplification. It's when I look at projectors that don't have very much definition, that are like, two centers defined, for instance, they will present as having so much energy compared to,
hmm
I'll look at a mental projector and they'll be like powerlifting, they'll be doing, and they're amplifying everything.
Oh, interesting. I
They're
would
amplifying
think of
everything
a
at 200%. Yeah, if you're amplifying four motors at 200%, I mean, if I look at
oh,
emotional
my
projectors,
instant
we're all
feeling is like
tired.
sickness though for that mental projector. Like,
What's
oh,
going on? Yeah, I mean, it's so common because projectors have sweet teeth. We like whatever juice there, you know, whatever
Yeah.
juice there is. And so
Hmm.
emotional projectors, we always present as having less energy. Yeah, we've got two motors, but those motors turn on according to whatever our fuel is. You know, my motors turn on according to passion. They don't turn on according to anything else. And yeah, then definitely a powerful force. Absolutely.
Right.
But it's not,
It's on a wave. It just operates differently.
yeah, it's like, yeah, I have a powerful emotional system. I know I'm a powerful force, but I don't have willpower that I can just turn on whenever.
Hmm.
You know, I don't, that's not something that I have. And also, I don't, because I'm not root to spleen, it's not about activity for me. It's like overall, yeah, emoting will put the other projected channels to sleep. It will.
Hmm.
In terms of like raw power, absolutely. It's compressed wave. It totally will. But it operates in a pulse. You know, I'm
Hmm.
not going to appear energetic unless you put something in front of me that I am passionate about. You know, you put a war in front of me, put a a lover in front of me, something like that, something I'm passionate about.
Hmm.
I can't even. The amount of energy that I have that's adrenalized emotional energy is so intense. But outside of that, I'm like, you know,
So
I'm like,
what do you feel passionate about now? Like not being in
uh,
spaces. What like what
I, it depends. You know, it's my relationships. So it's the
I guess I'm asking you
relationships.
too to see yourself.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can. I think it helps as a creative role model
People
because I can
around you. But
look at my experiences. You know, so
yeah,
what
yeah,
brings out passion in me? It's going to be the
yeah,
relationships in my life. You know, the
yeah.
confidants. You know, whether confidants, lovers, whatever, whoever it is that's in my life has to. I call it the passion button. They have to be able to, you know, if we look at emoting, it's a design of stimulation. That's the other keynote. It's design of moodiness, but it's also a design of stimulation. That's the other keynote for it. One of the other ones, and so it's a design of stimulating. Right, I stimulate people, but I also what need the stimulation through the duality. So if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not stimulated,
Mm-hmm.
then that's
True.
not there. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
get my passion from my work, you know,
Mutating.
mutating, yeah, things like that. Um, but it's definitely not as readily available as.
Making your contribution to the
Those things.
direction. I see you get passionate about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I just have the
Of
theme.
closing this cycle.
Yeah, yeah, and then it's gonna be
And
opening
it's
up the next one.
well, and like even so, like even 2027, it's like it's like a cycle that takes time and closes in its own time, like we just were talking
Totally.
about. It's not like it's like 2027, it's now closed. It's like it's gonna be closing probably until we die, like beyond that, so like
Yeah, it's like the frequency. The frequency is gonna be felt so much that it's like, okay, the door's closed. You know,
right.
but in terms
There's
of
a
our
yeah, there's gonna be a
overall,
shift for sure, but
yeah, but still, like, yeah, we're I mean, we're across the planning beings. You know,
yeah.
we have that influence.
Yep.
It's gonna be different. So it's watching the cycle close is really interesting for me. My relationship with the whole cycle. I mean, you as well. We're from the same nodal family. We're the
Yeah.
ones that are tied to the entire.
Mm-hmm.
We're tied to the entire thing shifting. Like we are the ones that are tied to it shifting.
Which is really cool because of like yeah, like it's a generational a little bit. I mean, we all
Hmm.
incarnated at a specific time to get that nodal.
Yeah,
There's like there's a little group of us.
yeah. For our nodal family, it's like we're the people that are directly tied to the cycle
And it's
chain.
like just interesting because it's like, oh, we'll be post Saturn
Hmm.
when it's like, I don't know, you're like planning your cross as it's turning,
Hmm.
as it's shifting.
Yeah.
And what's been like for the eclipse and stuff, like what's been digesting? Is there anything like I know you were going through like stuff. Do you want to share anything? Is anything digested or is it still digesting?
I mean, a lot of it is. This is
As we
the
all have been,
This is
as the
the,
times.
yeah, I know, right? This is the one of the hardest times of the year for me. Of course, it's my birthday's coming up. Cycles close, people die. I've been to war, so I've had a lot of people in my life die right around this time. My dog died on my
Mhm.
birthday, that I rescued when I was in It's out there in northern Iraq and northern Syria. Um, so, yeah, I kind of got out of it this year in terms of grief. I just took 2 weeks away. You become really good at compartmentalizing when you've done the work that I've done. I mean, really good at compartmentalizing to the point where I can compartmentalize a whole identity and live
Mm-hmm.
out a different one, without any hiccups. And so when you're aware that you can compartmentalize that well, you also have to be aware that you have to let that out and deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, which isn't something that I've done for years, in the past. And it really hit me last year. I was like, whoa. And so this year I got ahead of it. And you really do have to just allow yourself to feel it. So moved through a lot
Mm-hmm.
of that.
Mm-hmm.
That was huge. Plus the eclipse. I mean, I'm an Aries sun, I'm a Cancer moon. All of that weather was super intense for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think the big thing now for me, I mean, I learned a lot relationally with that process just recently. Decompartmentalizing, I learned a lot about myself relationally. Is so much of my relational experience is forever impacted and imprinted by being with my unit and being with my team. You don't after you experience that level of loyalty and devotion from somebody, that doesn't go away, that. And it's not like, oh, I expect people to be like this in my life. It's that I've experienced that level of a standard where I trust somebody completely with my life. They trust me completely with theirs. We would do anything for each other, being in the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
And so
True life and death. Yeah.
so it's seeing how that's affected me in it relationally, and also how it's affected me relationally in terms of trust. I think that was one of the bigger things that I unpacked. Was I'm a trusting person as a fourth line. Like, I know that
Mm-hmm.
everything for me is about trust, but also having to just unpack that there's things are a little bit blurry there for me, because there's an experience of having these beings that are so close to me that I love so much, and the level of loyalty and trust and devotion that's there, and then there's me being home. So
Yeah.
one
So
of the
different.
largest things that I unpacked was just that there was this is a I guess this is kind of a Mormon term, actually. We use the term hardened heart. And the heart becomes hardened against other people, and so it felt like there's been a little bit of that in my life since I came
Mm-hmm.
home, and I unpacked that, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, whoa, which was huge for me. Anybody that knows me knows how much I value relationships, and so it was huge for me to unpack that and just see that there was something that was there. There was something that was shielding a certain level of intimacy in my life with my confidants and people that I love, my family. So that was
Mm-hmm.
one of my bigger pieces, which is it's great when you come back from just, it's such a different environment, such a different experience, and it's not something that I'm ever going to give up. It's something that is always going to be a part of me. I'm always going to have a lot of love there. There's so much about those experiences that have brought me to where I am today, have made me the man that I am today. And so I have to respect that, and I have to also be okay with the fact that, yeah, I had to unpack a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to unpack a lot. I was engaged in irregular guerrilla warfare, and more or less, it was these are not operations where anybody's coming to save you. These are operations that are really intense, and most people would never go on them. Most people
Mm-hmm.
don't. I mean, there wasn't even traditional forces on the ground. There was not even traditional special forces on the ground. It was all irregular. It was all contracted and volunteers. And so that experience there's a lot of love that has to be there in that experience. That's one thing, is if you're really gonna put your life on the line for something, and in a capacity that's different from, like, this is your career, this is what you're gonna stay in traditional military for 20 years, and you're gonna retire. You're probably never even gonna see combat. You might be on a base at most. It's very different from, okay, well,
Yeah.
we're gonna all, we're contractors. We're all gonna go because we see that this is wrong, and we're gonna go fight it, whether or not, without certain support, like without extraction, without air support. We're gonna go
Mhm.
do that. There's a level of love that has to be there to fight that.
It's like literally you enter through a portal and there's a chemical, it's just, you can't, like, I've never lived through that, but I can understand how when you live something, it's just so different than thinking about doing that kind of thing. It's like, okay, well, what would it be like if you were like in that situation and you truly like had no support and like that going in, that it's life and death, and like everybody's like walking through the portal of like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's just, I understand from like experience of different things where it's like I understand the portal feeling where it's like, whoa, you can't get it until you walk through the
Yeah.
specific thing. And then, like, obviously, this life is pretty removed from like what, like, Western life is pretty removed from almost like the reality of life or the,
Yeah. 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 In a
you
lot of ways.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's things that break you through that, like life and death, the
Hmm.
portal of birth and the portal of death. Definitely you have, but it leaves after a certain time or whatever. But yeah, and there's such a different, like when death happens and when birth happens, everything that was non-essential or it just doesn't matter anymore. Like literally nothing else matters.
Yeah.
And then you kind of go asleep again. So it's like we're like all like half asleep in a way. And so when you're in that, you're really alive is really so, and when you're you're also, and when you're in a space where you're really alive, you're like with people and everybody's awake. It's just different.
Everybody. Yeah. You mean,
And
yeah.
so there's a level of that, the confidence. It's like it's required, like you're saying. So it's just different.
Yeah. Because you
It's just
can't,
different. And
can't any, there can't be any doubts. Oops. There can't be any doubts.
there's a realness to it too, where it's like life is really petty and there's no pettiness.
Nope. There can't be. I mean, it's kind of funny too to watch.
Or life can be really petty, but yeah, is most of the
Yeah. Just I always thought it was just, it's always been interesting coming back to the West and just seeing the way that people behave and stuff like that, because out there, disrespect, man.
Right.
Like, there's just
You don't
things
have,
where it's like I can just think about like my sisters out there, and like ways that I've been disrespectful as come home. Like, I know, like 22-year-old Kurdish girl that would shoot you in the face for saying that about me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they do
yeah.
not do the disrespect. It's a matter of honor. You don't say things that you don't mean. Like,
Well, that's the difference between this like fabricated, westernized victimhood that's like
mhm.
everybody wears as like a badge of like, ooh, I'm a bigger victim. I'm more of a, what is it? Like I'm more of a minority or whatever the thing
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah,
Whatever the
whatever it
thing
is.
is, there's like different ways that you can be a victim, badge of honor,
Yeah.
which is just so not real in comparison to true honor or true like true victimhood, right? Truly being a victim to something horrific versus like, I don't even know. I hate that term now just because I just feel like it's been weaponized
Yeah.
in like
It's
a really just, ugh, I don't know. It's,
I mean, I know women that were abducted and trafficked and escaped
right.
and went back and they fought. They
And
escaped and went back and they
that's the
fought.
thing is like, it speaks to the level of not actually having true,
Real problems.
real
Real
problems,
problems. Yeah.
true things. That are, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a level of it's sink or swim.
Yeah, you
And
can't
so,
you can't have, oh gosh, yeah, that was something that was just so funny for me. Until this day, when I hear somebody complain about something, I'm like, Like that's like that's
Yeah.
like you know what I mean? Like I'll
And
be at
it's
a
always
restaurant and somebody
like,
be like,
oh,
I
I
don't
feel,
like this.
or just even like the things where you talk about people saying that you were like aggressive or like, or he's like, it's like for saying something, for speaking a truth that's hard for someone to hear. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's
Discomfort.
how weak we are. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know, just like,
discomfort. Yeah,
and I think
discomfort. I
that's
don't
my
feel safe.
Capricorn moon. That's what I was talking about. There's a harshness to Capricorn because it's like, what is the foundation of Capricorn? It's like truth. So if like something's misaligned with truth, Saturn is going to come after you. Like Saturn will leave you alone if you're aligned with truth. So like the harshness comes out of like, that's bullshit. And that bullshit is harmful. You're not a victim. That's bullshit. That's delusional. That's not true. That's only hurting you and everyone around you. Like, so there's a like, but I enjoy that kind of harsh truth because of maybe the Capricornian aspects of me, but I just like it's because I view that as love. That is what love is. It's like when you're being delusional and someone gives you truth, that's love, you know? Love is not colluding with delusion. That's not love.
Yeah, exactly. The people that validate your delusions are not the people that love you.
Right. And it's not easy to be the one that doesn't necessarily because you have to take the heat of the not self of somebody else, right? But like that's the love piece is like I will brave you thinking I'm the monster here because I have to speak this truth. And if you can't take it in now, maybe at some point it will come in when you're
Totally.
ready because you can't force it. It's like it'll go in if it's ready and it won't if it's not. And but it will be there. It's in the aura now.
I've seen that happen with quite a few people. With
Yeah.
with me. There's been
Yes.
quite a few people that they'll be like so thrown off with how provocative and heretical I am, and then they'll come back
Yeah.
around and they're like,
Yep.
"Well, actually, no, you were
Same.
right. You were actually, yeah, no, that was actually right. That was
Yeah.
actually the
I
truth."
couldn't take it in at the time, but
Yeah, yeah, and it
some
works like
things
that.
shifted and I was able to. And that I love. That's
Oh, I love
integrity.
that too. I
I
love it.
love when people, it's strength, it's empowerment. Like when you can be like, you know what, I was not able to take that in, but you were right. Or like this was like really good. And I'm glad you were the only one who said that to me. And I'm really glad you said that to me because nobody else was telling me that truth.
Yeah, I mean, so much of it too. It's like it's accountability, right? Um, there's a massive problem with accountability in Western civilization. Like people don't
Yeah.
want to they won't admit that they were wrong. Like that, something about me is I'll admit when I'm wrong. Like if
Yep.
I'm wrong on something,
Well, it's integrity.
like yeah, it's integrity. Yeah, it's and gosh, how of all the ways to measure character, it's like when you can say, oh yeah, no, I was wrong here. Uh, especially and it's interesting because everything starts at home, right? Everything starts with relationships. So if somebody can't admit that they're wrong in their relationships, that they made a mistake, they can't apologize, like out in the world, how
Right.
they're treating other people, what they're perpetuating, and is
Everything
massive.
becomes mental gymnastics for not being accountable.
Yep,
It's
totally.
like, okay, well, that none of that is true.
Yeah,
But, like,
exactly.
that's a nice story. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't, and that's just the only way to be clean. I mean, I'm
Yes.
so about being clean in relationships. This is what I am,
Yep.
and you know, this is what I understand you are. You
Yep.
tell me how you are, and that's
This is what
all
I
we
didn't
can be.
know then that I realize now that I would do
Totally,
differently,
totally,
that like I see now that I didn't see then.
totally. I mean,
And
that's.
like I want to own it
Hmm.
because that cleans the slate. It's like
Hmm. I mean,
sunlight is the greatest disinfectant. Take it.
I've, yeah. I mean, I've had relationships where 2 years later, I've reached out and said, "Hey, this happened, and I just want you to know that I'm sorry because I think that
Yeah.
probably made you feel this way." I did that with a partner that I had when I was in my 20s before Saturn return, and she was like, "I really appreciate that." I was like,
Everyone does.
"Wow." I
It's
was like,
great to receive that. It's great.
yeah, I
And
was just
it's
like, I was
always
being
good to give
selfish.
it.
Yeah, I was selfish to a degree that wasn't healthy. I was selfish to a
Yeah.
degree that wasn't healthy. I wasn't, I could have been more. And of course, there's all these layers, there's all these things. I can look at it and I can say,
Totally.
I see why I was like that. And I can also acknowledge that the way that that made them feel, and that
Yep.
now that's not okay with me. I would never do,
Yeah.
I have a different level of understanding, of empathy. And
What we're speaking about is true empowerment because like when you can own something, that's true empowerment. And like you can't really have that if you're not willing to own those things. If you can't own those things, you're not truly empowered.
no,
Because someone who's actually empowered it's not, I don't know, you just can own it. It's not something that you have to try to like avoid or manipulate your way out of. It's just matter of fact. Like I see that, and I can own
you
that.
can be, yeah, if you can't, to be in, you can't be in your own power if you can't accept yourself, and part of accepting yourself is to be honest with yourself.
Yep.
I know where I know where my shortcomings are. I know where my limitations are. And the more upfront I am about them, the better. The
Yep.
more upfront I am about who I am and what it's going to be my friend or my confidant or my lover, whatever it is, the stronger that foundation is going to be for that relationship.
I hear like what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It's like that feeling of like what's good for me is also good for you in the sense of like when I'm honest with myself, I can be honest with you. Like those are both that's beneficial to not only like the individual but the relationship. It's always going to be and so if you experience that, you were saying like there's all this like not people not being accountable. And so then my motivation goes like what's underneath that, what's the fun, why aren't people accountable? And it's like, well, because they don't love themselves. Loving yourself comes back to correct behavior, and because in the West we're all so skewed away from truth and correctness and being living it out, like specifically here it's like there's such a mask,
Right.
and that mask is inauthentic. Even authenticity is a mask. And like,
Yeah.
so when I
Yeah.
said that, that's the first thing I thought of. But like, there's so much of that because maybe it goes back to like not having real problems. I don't know. Or like not having like life-threatening problems, like
Yeah.
the comfort or whatever. And then you just start to like get really neurotic. Or I mean, I'm into like all the foundational things too. So I actually do see how those things are set up, and we're conditioned in a specific way to
Right.
create certain psychological things that
Right.
they don't want you in your power. They don't want you living as yourself. And there's a purpose for that. And it's been written about. It's not like a
Yeah. This isn't and it's interesting from your perspective with your education, your background, and like me, what I do. It's like very clear. If you've worked with the personality,
mm-hmm.
yeah, if you work with the personality and you've worked with the personality in a way that's not homogenized, like it's different. Like I was talking to a
Yep.
confidant who's a psychotherapist, and we were talking about like decolonizing therapy,
Mm-hmm.
decolonizing personality work. And it was like, yeah, I don't do therapy. I do rave psychology, which is very much decolonized. It's like, we're gonna break through, we're not gonna go through all of these same talking points. That's not the point.
Yep.
It's I think that we have a different understanding of it because it's so blatant when that's so much of your life. When that's so much of your life, it just becomes blatant everywhere. You see it everywhere. You see the conditioning everywhere. You see the same talking points. You see all of that happening, and so
Yeah.
you can't, you
So
can't ignore
it
it.
becomes like so obvious.
So yeah, so obvious.
To the point where you're like, why are people still, how is this still entraining the whole situation? Like, but
Oh,
I think that's like a built-in for us because we both have a deafness channel. So there's a little bit of like just built-in correct.
protection.
And the 1020 too, which is like,
Yeah.
it's not a deafness, but it's like it's gonna go its own way
This is
kind
who
of.
I am. Yeah, it's a this is
Yeah. So there's a little bit of like, not everybody has those built-ins too. So I try to like leave space for that. Like,
for sure.
but yeah, because there are certain people that are easier to hypnotize. That's just a
Oh
fact.
yeah,
Like,
totally.
so like that's what it's working on. It's a program of hypnosis.
Yeah,
It's entrainment. They're That's the whole scene. That's what they're
Totally.
doing. Like that's been developed. Like so many people would be like, it's not that like complex.
Oh,
They
oh.
aren't that smart. I'm like, yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
Yes,
Yes.
they
Yes,
are.
they
This has been going on for forever.
are.
Like
Oh,
this
yeah.
has been developed and studied and
For decades.
centuries.
These
Like,
things, these things aren't operating in years. These are operating in decades and centuries. This
yes.
program, this conditioning is operating. And it's interesting when I look at the East, because the East, it has its own conditioning, but so much of it is good from just the way that I see things in terms of, I guess, probability, in terms of problem solving, in terms of
Hmm.
preventing. Probability is very much about preventing problems from happening, preventing things. Ultimately, it's like, how can we prevent these things from happening so that we get the best outcomes? And when I look at it, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of this tribal conditioning. There's the theological conditioning, but also if I look at it, it's like you can't drive past somebody in Iraq or Syria without feeling very ashamed that you didn't give them a ride. You can't, and somebody
Hmm.
can't knock on your door and you don't offer them tea. Like, you knock on anybody's door, they're going to let you in there and offer you tea, and they're going to see why you knocked on their door. If you are asked how you are, like, this is one of the biggest things that I learned, being in Kurdish culture, was they would ask how I was, and I've got emoting, yeah, and if I would say that I was good, they'd say, "Why did you lie to me?"
Yeah, we're just like, okay, yeah, good. Thank God you didn't tell me. See you later. Well, run.
Yeah, yeah. So then I would have to explain,
Which is how you are with your good friends, I hope.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Then I would have to then I would have to, so that changed things because it's like, oh, everybody actually, so yeah, my whole unit actually gives a fuck about how I feel.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
We're
that's
not just
that's different.
pretending.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
not just.
pretending.
Hmm.
It goes back to if you're avoiding it, you're not gonna like as a therapist, they used to say like something that we'd like say a lot is like you can only take your client as deep as you are willing to go.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a cultural thing, right? Like they're only going to go as deep as they're willing to go in themselves in a way, or like
Totally.
so
Yeah. No, that was a huge cultural, and just, so there are things where it's like, yeah, I can see where so much of this is conditioned, but conditioning isn't bad, and certain things like that are just unacceptable. It's like, okay, yeah, there are things that get crazy. Honor killings can get crazy in certain areas of the East, like those things can, and at the same time, there's also a respect that's there because
right,
you're gonna, it's like the the violator, the offender, the criminal, uh, he's gonna think twice when he's in an area where the dad is going to
right,
get his justice if you violate his daughter. Like, that's a
right,
preventative measure. Yeah,
right,
it's extreme,
right,
but it's a preventative measure. And yeah, the cops are gonna look the other way because in that culture, that's okay because you don't do that to somebody's daughter.
right.
And people can feel however they want about that, but for me, from my view, that's a good thing.
I mean, they kind of call that like jungle laws. If you leave
Yeah.
me alone, I will leave you alone. Like
Yeah,
you don't do something wrong to someone else, I won't come for you. Everything can be obviously out to different extremes,
for
which
sure.
are not, great, but that it's always like looking at there's always a benefit, there's always a limitation, obviously.
Totally. Totally.
But what do we lose in being so uh I don't know. Candace Owens said this where she was like, we live in a time where words are violence, but actual violence is not violence. So like you can't say certain things about violence happening that you don't agree with because that's violence, but like it's okay to like it's not okay to speak about the violence itself. Like that is real, that is actually happening. Like children being murdered basically is what she was talking about.
Oh, yeah,
Children
yeah,
being bombed and murdered is fine. But don't speak about it. That's violence.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like, what is this time that we're living in? And it's because it's not aligned with truth. There's an agenda. There's a certain like stream of an agenda, right? And like that's always been the case. Like we look at history and we're like, whoa, that was going on then. It's not going on now though. But it's like, no, humans are still existing. We're still in like the seven-centered cross of planning, like holding up all of the seven-centered like propaganda. And a
Yeah,
lot of people living very seven-centered still, like manipulating others, trying to
almost
have
everybody.
power over others, trying to control what you do with your life and your time, what you see, what you don't like. Everything is a like, how can we turn you off and put you to sleep so that you're just an easy cattle that will work for a slave? That was the seven-centered way. Like everyone's
Totally.
a slave.
Yeah,
We're
totally.
the overseers of the slaves.
Totally.
That's not what we are.
Or
So it's so interesting because we're like these different beings that are asleep still. Most of people are just walking around and they're asleep and they're giving their power to somebody else. Ra was talking about the pineal gland, and I liked that because in yogic teachings, this is what Kundalini yoga was for. It was like to clear out wipe the slate clean on your pineal, and it was like a taking a shower thing. And he said that basically the brain, according to human design, is infinite. It takes in every single thing, every moment, every neutrino, every of all time since you've been here, and it stores it in the gray areas of the brain. And the only way that it comes through to consciousness is through the pineal. The pineal is the gatekeeper and it's a sponge. And he said, if the sponge is too full, you are asleep. Literally, that's how anesthesia works. So think about this world. So what's interesting to me is like fluoride in the water, for instance, like calcifies the pineal. So I'm like, they're literally putting in the water things that put people to sleep. That's not an accident. And like we've known for a long time that it's harmful, that it like makes you like dumber. And like still it's still like a fight to like not have it put in our so it's like, okay, of course. Like, and there was can't remember if this was in that book, like George Orwell or whatever, but like where it was like Soma or something, where they like put a drug in the water to put everyone to sleep. I'm like, that's just right there, boom. Like that's what they're doing. It's like, and there's so many things like that that are like built to put us asleep and put us in an entrainment that we're just kind of like sleepwalkers. And I
even
thought
just
that
the
was
even
so
just the
interesting.
media, the
Yes.
even just the media, the blitzkrieg
Yep.
of media is it's there
Yep.
to completely overwhelm
Yep.
the psyche. And
Hmm.
I just look at, this is just me, my experience as a creative role model. It's like when it comes to certain situations globally, my solutions have to do with violence. I solve things with
Yeah.
violence. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
like I don't talk about them. I
Yeah.
could, I guess, but that's not the way, it's like I'm the person that's going to pick up a rifle. I'm going to go and I'm going to actually do the work.
That's my husband.
That's the person that's going to go do the war. If you guys want to
Yep.
talk about it, talk about it. I'm the person that's there for when things I'm not going to talk about it. And that's part of
Yep.
being the person that doesn't, you know what I mean? That's kind of part of it is
That's also being correct, right? Open ajna. You're not here to know or to like say, I have an opinion about this. Like
no, yeah.
you're like showing the direction. Yeah.
Hmm.
And the passion for what is aligned with uh correct behavior
Yeah.
or like higher principles.
Yeah. Yep. Setting the direction for being an example.
Passionately setting the direction of higher principles.
Yep. Yep. So, yep.
So it checks out, yeah, with the 42.
Hmm.
Yeah. So everybody has their unique, which is cool because we all like have our role, the what we play in it. Like,
Yeah, totally. You
you
just have
know,
to live it out. It's like it's one of those
yeah.
things. It's where you're gonna be unhealthy. It's like me being a 10.5, that coming to my throat. I have the voice of a heretic. I've got a fifth color body. I've got like this vehicle is heretical, and I'm gonna be deeply unhealthy. I mean, I have judgment sense. My personality, my psyche is going to be unhealthy if I'm not heretical. Like it's going
Hmm.
to, which is going to overall affect
True.
everything else.
Yep.
Health wise, it's like
Yep.
everything affects everything.
Yep.
More, the more you live out what you are, the healthier you're going to be. I mean, you and me especially, we're huge on that,
Yeah.
on health
Yep.
affecting, your correctness actually affecting the physical form. There's not very many people that I that I'm close to that are as big on it as you are, because it's huge.
Yeah.
Mhm,
It's cumulative.
definitely.
Truth is truth. It doesn't matter what you think.
Yep.
Like you think whatever you want, like one decision at a time. That's it. It's like one decision at a time. And you will have to go through like one of my favorite quotes from Ra, and I like saved it. Where he's like, you think we should feel bad for you because you have to lose something to find yourself? And I just like love that. It's so
Love
true.
that. Yeah, love that.
Because he was like, because some people have, kids and jobs and mortgages and all, and they're like, I can't just sit around waiting. He's like, I don't give a damn. He's like, you think like I'm gonna feel sorry for you? Like, and I'm like, yeah, this man like left everything and lived in a tree for a few years. Like
Thought he was
literally lived
thought
in
he was
nature.
insane. He didn't,
Yeah. Like didn't have food, didn't have money, didn't have
and then he
anything.
went bankrupt after, and,
Yeah.
and
When his yeah,
after he got everything back, then he
his
went
son.
bankrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's like,
yeah, you can't. I mean, that can be correct for you
yeah. And then it's experiential. So you're not going to know why that was so like correct to go
until it's
through.
over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what taught Ra the importance of environment
Mhm.
experientially. Because
Yeah,
when he was like, whoa, I was not on a shore and like
yeah,
my son almost died and I went bankrupt. Like,
yeah. It's shores is a serious environment. I've got it. It's sensitive. It's serious. You have to
yeah.
learn. Like you have to learn those things, and yeah, in this process, in design, you're gonna go through. People talk about alignment like it's some uh, alignment is moving through time and space on the correct geometry so that you meet the correct forces in your life. You're at the correct points in time and space. It doesn't mean it's going to be pretty. It doesn't mean that it's going to be enjoyable. It means it's going to be of value.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be of value. It's like think if you have just a super cushy life, you never have any adversity, you never have to confront everything. How aware, how conscious are you? Not much. And it's also not to say that life is supposed to be difficult, because life is not supposed to be difficult. We're here to be aware, and we're very gifted and we're privileged in having the knowledge so that we can operate and move on the plane in a very different way from the homogenized world. However, we still have to have our difficulties. We still have to, and it's not that life's supposed to be a challenge, but you still have to learn. I just look at this process that I've gone through and, reassimilating into Western society. It's been immensely difficult. I've had to go through a very difficult reintegration process, and it's overall, it's made me more aware. Those
Mm-hmm.
experiences, it's made me more aware. Just going through the reassimilation process, the pain that comes with all of that, has made me more aware. If I came back and like somehow, you know, it's not something that could happen. I was just okay, and I never had to like totally reassimilate and everything like that. That would there would be much less value to my assimilation into a different culture and experience to accomplish a mission.
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't be that significant.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more significant because it's something that has taken up so much of my life, but it's given me so much experience and awareness. That's very much how I
Yeah.
look at movement.
Adversity creates like character.
Hmm. Yeah,
And that's what we were just talking about. And
yeah,
I feel like the whole thing of coming out of the victim thing is like, rather than looking at the things that have challenged you in life as, why did this happen to me? It's like, it's always going back to like, what is this giving me? Like, what is the gift here? What is the like, it's always a gift of awareness. And it's always a gift. There's so many gifts from it. Like, I feel like I don't know, I love my depth. I don't know. Like with it comes, it has been its own pain in my life that is for why I have that depth, but also I wouldn't trade it. And there's a difference between suffering, and pain.
totally.
That's really important, I think. And yeah, you have to like it's like once you accept what is, then you can use it. And I'm becoming aware of our time just now.
Okay.
So
Oh, you're good. You're good.
just thinking about wrapping. Wrapping us up, is there anything you want to
Oh,
share in closing or?
no, thanks for having me. It's always great. Our
Yeah, thanks for
conversation
coming on.
it's always very special. I enjoy it. I'm
Hmm.
glad you have me on.
Likewise. Yeah, we used to do like a short or when you talk about your experience, I think about like when I would do these small spiritual groups with people or like a group where you just get really real, and like you're just with the other being. Um, I mean that's like the point.
That's why
It's literally the point. And there's a resonance to that point that nothing else feeds.
to give true outer authority, to give true unique,
Nine-centered
perspective and
communion.
nine-centered
Really
communion. And
what it is, because it strips away like the of the
outer,
other stuff.
outer authority doesn't come from a place of conditioning.
Right.
It
Yeah.
can't. It can't. It
Comes
has
from
to.
experience.
Yeah, it has to come through uniqueness, and that's the most valuable thing that we have is outer authority. There's nothing that's more valuable that you can give to another human is than outer authority. And that value comes from the experience of radical transformation. It's like all of those days, all of those times, all that training the mind, all that eating according to determination, being in your, what builds that value? Well, changing your entire everything about what it is to be a human. We're nine centered, we're not seven centered. Yeah, it's important. It's special. I mean, it's like
And the magic to like be a little bit aware of that. Like of like, whoa,
Mhm.
that's like peel back the curtain. Like that's how the movie is working. That's why that feels that way.
Yeah.
That's what matters. Like literally nothing else. Everything else comes as a result of being correct, but it's like
Hmm. Totally.
it's just part of a ride. Like that's it. And the ride will end. Everyone's ride is ending and will end. 42. It will come to a close. Death will be the close. Everybody has a clock, and the clock comes to a point in the geometry.
Yep. Sooner or later, the bus is gonna show up. I know sooner or later, train's gonna show up for me. Sooner
Yeah.
or later, it's and it's
Sooner or
just the
later, a 42
acceptance.
will enter your life
I'm
and
a
punch
42, so it's
punch
probably
your
gonna be
ticket.
a
It might.
while. My experience, the amount of times that I thought that I was gonna get my ticket punched, it didn't happen. I'm gonna live a long life, but
We almost went off a cliff on a bus in Peru. We
mhm,
were driving up these switchbacks and like it started to free fall backward because the guy like missed hit the clutch and he
mhm,
like forgot to hit the brake and he was about to jump out of the bus or it was one of those like really large vans like cargo vans whatever. We were in the very back and it was like I remember it's like, we're going. This is it. Oh, whoa, whoa, this is really it. Like, we're going. It was just such a like silence on the whole bus. And the shaman who was up front, like, started like yelling at him in Spanish to like not get out and to like hit the brake. And he finally hit the brake and we were just sliding. And we are literally the tire was like half off, like the cliff. It's crazy. But anyways, there's just like, whoa, like, but then it's also that thing of like you don't control when you go and well, you don't know when it will be.
yeah, it's circling back to truth. It's like that's why it's so important, and the relationships are so important.
Mm-hmm.
You never know. It's like you don't want to leave that thing unsaid because you never know.
Mm-hmm.
I know this. I know this.
Say the thing, be
So many
real.
people, so many people that I love have died. So many people, and I'm somewhat like I'm not going to say like I'm okay with it. I'm definitely not. I don't have regrets because I
But there's
express
a
my love.
difference
I
between,
always express my love for people. I always
yep,
do. And so when that does happen, there's not a regret that's there. But if you
yep.
leave things unspoken, unsaid, and there's what that does to the body, but also it's like this, life is beautiful, but it all has its own timetable. It all has its own geometry.
Mm-hmm.
So many times I've felt bullets whiz by my ear. It's
So crazy.
or I have shrapnel in my body too. I've had shrapnel in my body so many times. It's like if I would have been just this much farther, there would have been a piece of shrapnel that could have taken out my, you know what I mean? Hit me
Mm-hmm.
right in, in an artery. Like there's so much. I don't know. For me, as a 42, I've had so many experiences that just show me how there's such a small, just it's
Yep.
there's not much of a it's the bridge isn't very large between life and death. It's not
Yeah.
massive. It's such a small line, and yet it's never going to be wrong.
Right.
That's the thing. It's never going to be wrong. It happens exactly the way that it's meant to happen.
Yeah. I remember thinking that you could control it. I kind of feel like that's what that was teaching me on the bus. It's like, oh,
I know.
you don't have, and I mean, obviously I knew that, but it's like different when you actually are like, oh, I truly do not have.
No, you
And
don't.
it could be totally without warning.
It can happen fast. It can
Yeah.
happen very fast. And yeah, totally without warning.
And
You know.
something I learned doing like grief work with people in therapy is like, so many people were like, I was ready for them to die. I said all I needed to say, but it really wasn't truth.
Yeah,
And then it's not like you avoid it. You can't.
it
So
catches
like
up.
that message of like say the thing, yes.
Yeah,
Say the thing, own the
say the
thing.
thing,
Did
say
you
the thing,
wrong
or
someone? Own it. Like
say
did
the thing for yourself
you
too.
love, like I love how you say that. Like if you love someone, let them know. Like let them know. I don't, it's just because you can't, you think it's going to be a certain way, but the reality of death is it strips away all the illusion. So most of the way you think about it is illusion a lot of times, like because you're avoiding the truth.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can when it's not there yet.
You can't exactly. You can when it's not there yet. When you haven't experienced it. I Yeah, like it just again closing. One of the most something that's so important for me in my work right now and just overall is expression because your 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 body knows what you're not expressing. Your body, and we're here to express things through our throat center. We're not here to express things through our mind, but through our throat center, through our physical form. And when you hold that in, it's like if I'm bitter about a former partner or something like that because I didn't express something, it's going to make me deeply unhealthy. So I've learned that no matter what the circumstances are, to express that.
Yep.
You know, she could be completely livid with me and I want to send her flowers. We're not even on talking terms. I'm going to do it. And I can feel in my body, like these are things that I've done. I can feel in my body, I'm a little bit healthier because
I
I'm not withholding.
100%. Yep.
I'm not just not saying that. Even if it's one
Yep.
sided, even if it's one sided, it's like nine-centered love is without conditions. So even if it's one
Mhm.
sided and the homogenized advice would be like, oh, well, match it, da, 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 they're doing this, they're doing that. Forget all of that. Forget all of that. I'm going to express what's, coming out of my emotional system. I'm going to express my passion for me.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to have a good effect on them. It's great. We're here to love and be loved. But any expression, anything, whether it's love or anger, whatever it is, any expression that needs to come out of the
That
body
is true.
that's true, it needs to come out. Like,
100%.
it needs to come out.
Truth held in the body is disease for sure. Like 100%, whether that be expressed through action or through speaking.
Yeah,
But yeah,
one
the
way.
throat,
Yeah, totally.
100%. That's a great closer.
Yeah,
Way
that's
to close it down. Way to close the door. But really, that is a good closing. So thank you so much for
thanks, Cass.
joining me. As you say, hope you have the day you have.
The day that I have
That
feels like it's gonna be a
is
good one. We'll
correct.
see.
I usually say, well, like, or a nourishing day because I like
Yeah.
nourishing days. But
Thanks, Cass.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.